My name's Eric. I'll be facilitating today, and then Patrick Chandler will be leading our area of discussion. We switched gears. We had Danielle was going to be speaking today, but needed to postpone. So we're going to focus on a topic around interdisciplinary curriculum and some efforts that Patrick's been involved in. But we thought we'd start an icebreaker, given that at least here in California, we've been getting some decent sun lately. Just maybe go around the room with a quick introduction and something you're looking forward to potentially doing this summer. Maybe it's a travel plans or a project that you're working on at home. Um, and maybe since Patrick has the beautiful backdrop, I'll let Patrick share something to start, and then just pick somebody
Mm,
popcorn around.
sounds good. Hi, everybody. So I'm Patrick Chandler, and should we do intros along with summer things here, Eric?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, that'd be great.
cool. I am an education specialist for CLEAN, the Climate Literacy Energy Awareness Network. CLEAN is nested under CERES, the Cooperative Institute for Research in Environmental Sciences, and our office there focuses on education, evaluation, and engagement. So, wahoo! Um, I'll be telling you a little bit about what I've been up to this weekend next, so I won't get into that. But this summer, I only have one thing on the calendar, but it's a big thing. I'm going to Milan to see Taylor Swift. So there's that. When we looked at tickets last year, it was so crazy here that I got in the lottery for Europe tickets for Taylor Swift concert, and it was a better deal to go to Europe and see a show there at sticker price tickets than it was to try and get secondhand tickets here. So that's on the books for July. Um, and other than that, I'm just hunkering down because that's all I can do this summer. And with that, I will pass it to Scott.
Thank you, Patrick. You might check out, you're not too far from Torino when you're in Milan there, so you might want to investigate some interesting things while you're hanging out there in Italy. Scott Lewis here, Florida Climate Educators Network, and down in Broward County, Florida. And one of the things I guess that I'm looking forward to, and actually Tiffany Boyd is on the call today, so I'm looking forward to talking with her in a few weeks, actually, just to learn more about the program she's doing in Colorado and think about how we can get more retired teachers to help in the science classroom teaching about climate. So looking forward to talking with her there. And I'll pass along to Carolyn.
Hey, please pardon my fans. I have not had air conditioning since the tornadoes. There was damage to my outdoor compressor unit, and I'm waiting for that to get fixed. So this is how I deal with it. Um, but yeah, so for Clio, I'm really excited. We are taking the volunteers, interns, etc., on field trips, and we're going to go to the Okefenokee National Wildlife Refuge and do sort of a swamp tour, which I'm really excited about. Um, it was a refuge for folks escaping slavery, and home to some native folks. So I'm really looking forward to that. And then I've got a whole bunch of workshops and a paper due Friday. So I'm crossing my fingers for accepted with minor revisions. I think that's really the best any of us can hope for.
Fair enough.
Laurel, I don't think I've seen you in these meetings before. Would you mind introducing yourself?
No, not at all. I'm not sure how my internet's going to do, so I'm going to leave my camera off for most of the meeting. But hi, everybody. I am new to the meeting. I just joined the Clean Network listserv a couple weeks ago after the AERA conference. I am a PhD student at the University of Southern California in urban education policy, and I'm studying climate change education and how do we support teachers to teach climate change in their classroom across subjects, across grades. So I'm really excited also to hear about today's topic. This summer, I am going to be focusing on my dissertation. My dissertation study just started 2 weeks ago, and I am going to be in the throes of collecting data and analyzing data pretty much all summer. I do get to take a break. I'm running a half marathon through wine country in July with some friends, which I think will be really fun, which will take my mind hopefully off of all of my dissertation work. So I'm really excited to be here. Thank you for putting this together, and I'm glad to join. And I will popcorn to James.
Thank you, Laurel. James Callahan, multiple hats. Mobile Climate Science Lab, Bard High School, Early College in Washington, D.C., other schools, climateeducation.org. This summer is going to be a nice, rich one. Eric, one is we'll probably see you up there at the NASA Fest at Chabot. So whenever NASA wants to do something at one of our museums, they always ask for us because we do climate and NASA and very popular. There's the Mid-Atlantic Climate Education Conference coming up. There is in San Francisco, we present for all of the San Francisco School District in front of City Hall, labs on climate science. My colleague Victoria Bampo will be at the Climate and Equity Institute in Maine. There's the Excel Conference, of course. There's the Livermore Youth Climate Summit coming up, and we're also preparing our students for AGU as they're getting in their abstracts. And it will be in one of our homes in Washington, D.C. at the Convention Center in December. So that's not all of what's going on this summer, but I think that's a pretty good taste. So that's it. I have some announcements for later and things, but let's see. Let's see who's here from 10 Strands. It's like Price is Right. I'm gonna go behind the door and we're gonna see who we get.
Hi guys, this is Amy from 10 Strands, and I was just putting my information in the chat. I can't really be on the screen right now, but it is nice to see you all this morning/afternoon. And I came in late. Hi Laurel. I really don't know who presented yet, so I'm just randomly popcorning and see where it lands. Sorry guys.
Oh, no problem. Summer, do you wanna take the reins?
Hi, I'm Summer Bellany with Solano County Office of Education. And like Amy, I came in late, so I get some emails, and I thought I would pop in. I'm the new program manager, and we're kind of just building out our program now. So I thought I'd come and join the conversation and see what I can learn.
Great, thanks so much. And yeah, and I can jump in and then I'll popcorn too. I think we've got a few other folks. I'm Eric Havel. I serving as our facilitator today for the call. But I'm located in Oakland, California, do climate literacy education for my colleagues have termed K to Gray, so students all the way up to teachers and professional development efforts with Community Resources for Science, a local nonprofit here in the Bay Area, and then the Chabot Space and Science Center, which Jim was referring to, a science center that I've been part of for about 25 years now, doing informal education and a lot around sustainability and climate ed. And I'm looking forward to visiting Patrick's area this summer. We're going to take a road trip up to the Pacific Northwest, southern Puget Sound area near Olympia with some friends, and then also on the way up or back, see the big trees, the coastal redwoods of California, and some other fun stuff along the way. I will pass it over if my memory is serving me well enough. Emily, have you introduced yourself yet? Okay, great. So Emily.
Yeah. Perfect. Thanks, Eric. Yes. Hi, everyone. My name is Emily Snowd-Brenneman. I'm with the UCAR Center for Science Education based in Boulder, Colorado. We develop resources, or we'd like to say, as others, K through Gray resources for all sorts of, also just general public too. And so there's activities and just general information on our website. And then we also have the NCAR Mesa Lab facility in Boulder that has an exhibit, and we have climate. What part of our exhibits is a climate floor. And let's see, I'll popcorn to Anne. Did I get that one?
Yeah. Hey, thank you. So my name is Ann Henderson, and I work for Florida Atlantic University's Pine Jog Environmental Education Center. So like my husband, calls and says, how was your day? I'm like, oh, saving the world. So that's, we kind of deal with all things, environmental education. So one of the things that we're working on this summer is we have two programs that we're doing, which is H2O to go, which is all about water systems. And then the other one is a climate ready week that is the kids come in and they live in the dorms at Florida Atlantic University at the Jupiter campus. And so it's a really good introduction to kind of what college is going to be like when they're, when they're actually in college. And they live there for a week, and then we go to, we do field trips and we do all kinds of things like that with them, and take them places. We take them to Mang, that's one of our favorites, and we take them to, we also take them on a field trip to see the Science on the Sphere at Galaxy Elementary School. So, yeah. Does anybody have a question? Okay, go ahead.
Great, and I think our last, if I'm got it been right, Andrew, I think you haven't had a chance to introduce yet, right? Is that right?
Yes, that's correct. Hi, everybody. My name is Andrew Sauce. I'm a retired environmental sociologist at the University of California in Santa Cruz. And some years ago, I did a content analysis of intro to sociology textbooks. So roughly 800,000 undergraduates take an intro to sociology course every year. So it's an ideal place to talk about the sociology of climate change. The analysis of the content showed that environmental issues are covered almost always in the next to last chapter, about 10 pages. Climate typically got 2 paragraphs, which are very scary paragraphs, but since they're buried at the end of the semester or the quarter, very often people don't even get to it. And when they do, they're exhausted and ready to go on vacation. So I created a website to create a module that can be used easily in intro courses to teach the sociology of climate change. This summer, it's now about 3 years out of date. I will be revising and updating that website and then letting the world of sociology know that it exists.
Thanks so much, Andrew. I think that's a really nice lead into our conversation. We have one additional person to introduce, which is Rachel Wellman. So I'm going to turn it to Rachel.
Hi, everyone. I'm also with FAU Pine Dog with Anne. I'm the program lead for Climate Ready, and I've been very busy and making this now 1 semester, which used to be a 3-semester program, into a 1-semester condensed program, and I'm super excited with how it's evolved. We've got an even stronger connection with the Office of Sustainability here in West Palm Beach, and there's a chance that we're going to talk with the mayor, in fact, as well as the director of the Office of Sustainability. So very, very cool stuff going on this summer, and that's where I've been connecting with students, and which is one of my favorite things to do. And yeah, that's it.
Great. Well, thanks so much. It's great to see such a array of us from around the country attending today, and it's a nice turnout too. I haven't been able to jump on the calls lately because my weekly team meeting now coincides with our weekly clean meetings, but definitely enjoy facilitating at least quarterly and seeing you all again, and a lot of new faces, which is excellent, and really excited about that. So with kind of our interest in interdisciplinary teaching, Patrick had proposed as sort of a pivot to a topic. So I'm going to turn it over to Patrick to kind of start the conversation and share some efforts that he's involved in around cross-curriculum teaching and some clean efforts. And then really just want to open it up and give space for everyone to share some connectors to that kind of area of work. So Patrick, go ahead.
Yeah, and I'm definitely looking forward to jumping in, but I want to make a little space in case anyone has announcements they want to get to before we roll into a proper informal conversation. So anything upcoming that people really would like to highlight or have going on before I jump in? Yeah. Go for it, Jim.
Yeah, so I think this announcement's meant to be an encouragement and strengthen for all of us. At Bard High School Early College, where we've had a class on climate change that's full semester, all semester long, 5 days a week, focused on climate science and climate action. we went to the principal to get his assurance that we will be continuing it again next year. And we went into what it could do for the school and what we were doing. And his response was, okay, you've got 1 semester class. Can you give me 2? And we said yes. So we now have 2 full semester, 5 days a week meeting elective classes in a high school where the students teach to the elementary and middle school students of Southeast DC. And that will allow us to be much more holistic, to put much more attention into the social sciences, into international studies, into just all around holistic, much more time to go into things. Also much more time into career development, right? We're going to be able to bring in real careers because, you know, we're in a school that's 99% Black and Latino. And the biggest hurdle of all is we care about climate change. We want to do something about it, but we're Black and Latino, and we're told you can't. These careers aren't for you. You can't. You're never gonna do it. So why do you even bother? And we need to break that down and have the community come in and bring the connections and bring the knowledge. So we're going to be in much more power to do that. Now we have an obligation. I'm wrapping this up. We have an obligation to serve all of the community nationally. And so to having courses of this caliber, if this can help you, please let us know, because that's our intention. We're not just teaching in one little school. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Jim. And anyone else with announcements before we kind of jump in? And there's a request from Andrew, for Andrew to pass on some information in the chat from Scott.
I'd be happy to show the URL for now, and then I will let everyone know when it's when the revision is up and running.
Great, thanks for sharing that resource. All right, any other quick announcements? All right, great. Well, Patrick?
All right. So my goal is to give about a 5-10 minute overview of the teaching across the curriculum efforts and what we've been doing at Clean, and then to open it up for a broader conversation on that topic. We did have a presentation planned today from Danielle, who had to step out unexpectedly, that was focused on regional models for climate education. And we'll get that back on the books when possible, but it will likely be a few months for Danielle. So as far as teaching across the curriculum goes, it's an incredibly exciting time for climate education, I think. I'll give you my very optimistic interpretation to do what you will with. But I think that for our first 10-15 years of pushing hard on climate change education, we were very, very information focused, very much saying that in order for students to navigate climate change, they had to understand climate science. And that model is changing pretty quickly nationally. But I think that we actually got someplace really cool with that push, because when you look at the Yale program for climate change communication, when you look at surveys nationally, by and large, folks are aware of climate change. They understand that it's happening, and vast majority of the folks in the country understand that it's human caused. And I think that there's a good chance that folks that aren't in that realm of understanding and respond that way to surveys probably won't be swayed due to a variety of factors, beliefs, and different intertwined pieces of that puzzle. So I think we've kind of hit saturation as far as folks aware of climate change. And that is really cool. But what we neglected in that big push was helping people process the emotions that come with that understanding of climate change, and really creating pathways to action that were meaningful on multiple scales. And in order to work through those two pieces of the puzzle that are sorely needed right now, I think we're seeing this big spur to teach climate change across the curriculum in all subjects, because you have to address the humanities, you have to address the other parts of knowledge, the other parts of being, if you're going to process emotion and create pathways to action that involve systems thinking and can actually deal with the problem. So I think we're at a really cool place. It's always a question of how we'll move forward, but in this place that we're in, we see multiple different levels taking action to do this climate across the curriculum work. New Jersey's probably leading that charge with passing legislation that mandates teaching climate change in all subjects and grades. It's been an interesting rollout there, but they're moving forward, which is amazing. Washington's also at the top of that list with Climb Time and some of the work they're doing and looking at updating their standards. Right in the mix are Maine and New York and Oregon, who are in the process of doing that work. Colorado just passed a climate literacy seal that students can graduate with. And this is wonderful to see this momentum. I also see kind of a scramble of folks figuring out what exactly that means to teach climate change across the curriculum, how to bring it in, and how to address the major equity questions that are inherent here. Because if you're asking teachers to do more, those most equipped to do more are the ones who are already doing a lot because they have the privilege and the resources to do so. So lots of questions in this space, but some really cool momentum moving forward. And to be in this early wave of work on teaching climate change across the curriculum, CLEAN has been conducting a research project and a resource seed collection project. And they've been going on simultaneously. I've been leading those efforts. So for the research side of it, we've been working with educators in New Jersey and Washington to do both qualitative and quantitative surveys and a focus group to see where they're at and what they need moving forward. I think a lot came out for me in that research. We finished all 3 rounds. I'll have preliminary results to offer in the next month or 6 weeks. I'll do my best to get that out to folks as soon as possible. But I'm still seeing a bit of a disconnect between teachers and the resources that they need. One thing that really surprised me in our focus groups, out of the teachers that participated, 0 had heard of or used the CLEAN network. And I'm seeing a strong need to help us hit that middle scale of reaching district leaders and state leaders who are training teachers, because we've done a lot of work with the Council of State Science Supervisors, and on that upper side of things, we've done workshops and professional development for teachers, but scaling up for us and increasing usability and notice of CLEAN, I think, is hitting that middle scale, which we haven't figured out how to do just yet. We're working on it. But more to come from that research side of it. I see teachers right now, though, creating a lot of their own lessons, pulling videos, doing quick grabs of what they can to make it work and bring climate into their classroom. But there's a lot of support needed for how to bring climate change into the curriculum they're already teaching without overburdening folks. So that's a rough first takeaway from the research. But I also wanted to mention, and especially for folks who are not familiar with CLEAN or just jumped on this call, as I've been doing this research, we've been developing a seed collection for CLEAN, which is exciting for multiple reasons. I realized early in the work that rather than just jumping in to random tools and finding teaching across the curriculum resources, that I would start with the CLEAN collection and tag every resource in the collection for all subjects that it could be taught from. So that's been a big chunk of my past year. And I want to show you in the Explore the Collection area now, we have tags. And if y'all aren't familiar, there's a ton of tags here in our almost 1,000 lessons. But now we have this teaching across the curriculum tags. And I tag these resources with the idea that they could be taught by the teacher teaching these subjects. You know, if there was a science lesson that included writing prompts, I wasn't like, oh, tag it for ELA. It was like, could an ELA teacher pick it up and run with it in writing or reading areas? So explore these tags and share them with folks who are interested in this work, please. The next piece of the puzzle for this work is creating teaching guidance pages. I know all of you, many of you are familiar with our teaching guidance section here. So many topics, and we will be including teaching across the curriculum topics in this realm. Some recent ones are the climate and mental health, and I'm updating the National Climate Assessment educator resources there. But we're also reorganizing this section to make it more accessible. Anyway, as I am thinking about creating these teacher guidance pages based on the research that we've done and the seed collection that we have, one question I had is what folks thought about designing those pages. I think I'm going to do it for multiple subjects, for social studies, math, ELA, and art to start, because that's what we tagged for. But those are the things that have been on my mind, and I will open the floor to folks who want to talk about teaching across the curriculum or the seed collection or the research or the teaching guidance pages. And hopefully that will give us enough to carry us through the conversation here. And I see Scott, you've got a question.
Yeah, Scott, go ahead. Yep.
Oh, thanks, Patrick. Here's my question. I don't know why, but I'm thinking a lot about it, artificial intelligence these days. Have you guys got any way, are you thinking in terms of using something with a website that'll incorporate some ways to the teachers could interact with that AI thing and direct them to some of those resources?
I need to unpack that a little bit to really understand what you're asking. Are you asking if we're going to try to provide teachers with resources on how to use AI in the classroom to navigate climate change?
No, I'm thinking in terms of actually the interface with the website would be an AI thing, whatever you call those things, and it would interact with them, and that would direct them in certain ways to find resources for their particular setting.
So an AI that would help provide advice to teachers on what they need?
Yeah.
It's not on the table yet. And it's an interesting realm. I think right now, as far as technology goes, so many questions around AI exist for teachers. It's a real struggle, I think, for teachers to navigate the fact that content doesn't matter as much as creativity in the realm of AI, because you can ask AI any question about anything and get an essay on any length that can be edited to not look as much like AI. So it's a crazy realm. And so the question becomes, what matters with AI? And how do you navigate it productively and usefully in the classroom? And this is all to say that in response to your question, I think that there could be potential, but Clean is built on an old platform that was custom built. I don't know what it would take to integrate AI into that platform, but it would be trickier than building it with that in mind from the way that it's been stacked over the years. I think there could be some interesting possibilities in that realm to think about what could be combined and synthesized to help move multidisciplinary lessons forward with the collection. But as of yet, we're not moving in that direction because it would take at least a decent chunk of resources to get that figured out that we don't currently have. But cool question.
Yeah, and I know it just anecdotally too, for me, it's AI has been coming up a lot in terms of just intersections with teaching. How do teachers kind of leverage that, understand it, screen for it, give guidance? I mean, there's the whole range of apprehension and terror about it, and then sort of the opportunity side and everything in between. And a lot of it is around this creative side that Patrick's sharing, I know has come up in conversation in the context of the kind of queries that you ask. Your questions are really important, and the way you navigate those questions and refine those questions based on what you're getting back. So I think it's just an interesting time. And I think that overlap, it's come up on PBS a few times, using AI as a tool to solve large problems like the climate crisis, and what would it say? So kind of rolling back to our topic a little bit, making some connections. One of the queries I've thought about recently is just a very direct one. What's appropriate for a second grader to learn about climate change, and just see what Chat GPT or something spits back out? Because I think we're all in this this process. California is also a leader in this space, I think, as many of us know, and Amy just shared a resource around the math frameworks that you can check out and make some connections with. But we just passed AB 285, which is a state bill to basically mandate climate education for the K-6 space in science, though it's not interdisciplinary, but in science, which is a new thing for California. So that's exciting. Um, and so trying to figure out how that looks and what's appropriate. And I think those of us that are in states that have adopted NGSS already, that embeds some climate education, at least in the secondary areas. So you kind of by default are doing some climate change potentially if you've adopted those standards and are sort of adhering to that kind of teaching. But in terms of interdisciplinary, I think there's a lot of, and Amy, I think, can speak to this work a lot because 10 Strands has been driving a lot of it, but there's a lot of great work happening at the county levels. I know Solano recently was involved. We have representation here today and some other districts showcasing some of their interconnections between not just the curriculum that's happening within school districts, but also the facility side of the house. So how are schools becoming green learning centers and campuses, and how do we leverage like a school garden, or the fact that we have solar panels on the roof, that maybe we don't have enough to power, maybe we need more. So how does our teaching environment influence and intersect with the actual curriculum, and how do we kind of tie those together? And I think there's a lot of potential there. So that's another thing to kind of throw out into the mix. And then just last, I'll share, I've been doing a lot of focused work with Berkeley Unified and Oakland Unified School Districts on climate literacy. And those are two East Bay counties, for those of you not from California. Two of the four that actually have adopted climate resolutions at the formal level at the for California. And they're so, and Fremont also has been involved in this effort, and they're really trying to grapple with this exact thing, like what's appropriate at each grade level to be teaching, and what's the interdisciplinary, where are the interdisciplinary opportunities? And I think for the self-contained teachers, it's challenging for the reasons that Patrick has shared, that's overwhelming for teachers, and yet there is an opportunity with a single teacher teaching, 30 third graders to sort of create an umbrella around climate literacy and make all those connections to ELA, to math, to science, to social studies. But then when we get to the secondary level, it gets more challenging, because then you're talking about a team of teachers trying to work together. And if it's not mandated, in math or in social studies, then it's kind of on the teachers to be at the vanguard and sort of make that effort. So I'd kind of throw that into the mix, especially at that secondary level. How do we bring folks together and provide the resources needed to do that? And Jim, I see your hand up.
Yes, thank you, Eric. So I'm hoping just that we can fold into this discussion. I don't want to change the discussion in this way, but fold into the discussion that people can speak to. Patrick, you were rightfully saying, we don't have as many people using Clean as we like. We teach it in our schools, we teach it in our places, we teach it in our museums. We use Clean and we encourage people to do it. What is the main curriculum influence in American schools right now? I can speak to California, I can speak to Maryland, I can speak to DC. And I would say that if we don't recognize that and own up to it and deal with it, does that work? Does it work to pretend that we don't know who the main influence is? Okay. Especially when I've had that main influences come to me many times to pay me a lot of money to stop doing what I'm doing and do what they're doing. They have a tremendous amount of money, and how they can be the most influential in the District of Columbia. In the District of Columbia, the DC Public Schools has two main partners that it says that should be taught in all of science. So I'm talking science. One is a fossil fuel industry program, the main one. Okay, and I'll let other people name what that is. The other one is an organization that then has under it clean. So in DC Public Schools, what my program does, what our students do, is already recognized by the DC Public Schools. But by far, what the teachers are teaching is heavily influenced by the fossil fuel industry. It's heavily influenced, and we have to. I don't think we're being serious if we don't deal with it. And one more thing I'll say is when I went to the assembly member, the person who wrote the legislation that back in 2011, I think it was, or 2010, where they had Education Environmental Initiative in California, where there was a law that all of K-12 schools should teach environmental education, including climate science, and that was passed. California, that's been around for quite some time. California was the first to have a statewide law. You are going to teach this. And I went to him and her and said, we looked at the curriculum that's been developed, the textbooks the teacher is teaching, and in energy and in climate change, this is fossil fuel industry propaganda. And that legislator told me it was my responsibility to get the legislation passed. It's not my responsibility how it gets implemented. So in California, we opened the door for environmental education and climate and energy science, and the fossil fuel industry was totally ready, and they came in and they got their content into the schools. If we pretend like they don't exist, what are we doing? So anyway, I just do that, because I think we have to deal with, we've got this elephant in what we do. How do we, or maybe the last one I can ask questions, how many people here are comfortable that what we actually getting the schools is what the fossil fuel industry wants? How many people are okay with that?
I'll push back a little bit, Jim, and say, I know it's definitely an issue, but one of the interesting and challenging and frustrating and awesome things about working on national climate education is there is no standard and there is no main player in every place. And it's not fossil fuels in every place for sure. There are some fights that are being fought in specific places on that, but the way that things are politically arranged in education means that in many states, local control rules everything. And that's the case in most of the states I've navigated to various degrees. In other words, when a state passes standards, it may or may not actually get taught in a given school in a given district. There are places that are local to control to such a degree that the school board can decide not to implement the state standards, and that's fine, that's allowed. And conversely, that works both ways. So like in a liberal state, a conservative district can choose to go a different direction if they're heavily local control. And conversely, in a conservative state, a liberal district has power to navigate its own course differently as well. So I hear you. It's a big influence. It's a challenge. But it's also, I think, being very aware of local control and navigating that system in high impact areas that stands to make a difference and overcome that challenge, and also where that fight is being fought. For example, Denver Public Schools just passed a climate action plan, and it's one of the first districts in the country to have a district-wide climate action plan. And that's a really good example of that local system playing differently than the state or national system does. So I think we're going to see that over and over again. And even though fossil fuels will be a factor, I don't think it's going to be the central focus in many of the places where this fight will be fought.
Other thoughts? I've got a few, but I wanted to make space for others that haven't had the chance to share kind of around. One thing I might throw into the mix that piggybacks, Patrick, on what you just shared is even within a district, you have schools with resources and those that don't. I grew up here in Oakland, and we have the whole gamut, you know, of ability. And sometimes, even though NGSS is the state adopted, there's a climate resolution within Oakland. Teachers have a tremendous amount of latitude site by site, and it does center a lot of times around, as somebody mentioned, standards-based testing. If a school that has lots of resources is making benchmarks, then the teacher's given a lot of latitude to just do what they would like to do, regardless of whether it maps to standards or not, because the kids are doing what the school and the principal need them to do. But other schools that are less resourced have a lot of language learners, you know, have a very diverse demographic, under-resourced, marginalized communities. It's more challenging. And so it's this situation of having a lot of resources and then being allowed to do what you want to do, and then not having those resources and sort of being, hey, you got to focus on math, you got to focus on writing. Those are our two things that are paramount. And then comes science later. You know, 30 minutes maybe math, or 100 or an hour is all that's allocated within Oakland. And then climate is not even right. It's at the tertiary part. So I would just put that out there in terms of at the very kind of focused district level and within a single district. But Carolyn, go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to sort of reiterate, yeah, that focus on the school districts. I just posted an article, I'm sure y'all are aware, that basically Governor DeSantis has banned mention of climate change in state law. And so that includes, you know, that includes education. So like we can't mandate climate education, that kind of thing. But I have, you know, I have a workshop coming up in my home district, and we talked about that at one of our planning sessions, me and the curriculum specialist. You know, and she basically was like, you know, we're just going to let teachers know this is the topic, you know, this isn't being mandated, because I believe that's the issue, is if they're allowed to teach it, but it can't be mandated. And I'm focusing on a lesson that I've been developing, which is all about media literacy, critical thinking, identifying bias, logical fallacies, etc. So it's really broadly applicable. But I've also had school districts who, you know, once you know, like once it wasn't just the sustainability department, but there were, you know, like curriculum had to go in and approve what we were doing. That at the last minute they canceled our workshops. So yeah, it is very dependent on who you're working with at that district level. And I would say that if it's possible to like build relationships with folks at the district level before you start, you know, before you start, I don't want to say pushing, because that, I feel like there's insinuations there, but yeah, so that they feel like they can, you know, they can trust you and they will go to bat for you. I think that can be really valuable.
Great. Rachel, do you want to add to that? Or I say had some comments in the chat as well.
Sure, yeah. You know, I think number one for teachers, even in A+ schools, I worked in a school that was an A school for over 14, 15 years, and it was still a focus of our teaching was absolutely standards-based. So if it was going to be on the test, or if we had an inkling that it would be on the test, then it needed to be taught, period, and that was the focus. So if climate change isn't in the standards or the testing, it's not going to be predominantly within our lessons. I think that's the first thought that I had. The second is, you know, with this DeSantis move, I think it definitely creates a tension and a climate for within a classroom or with any social setting to talk about climate change. And that's unfortunate. But as it stands now, we can still teach climate change. As a matter of fact, there is a course within our Florida schools that has an entire chapter and unit on climate change. That is a college level course that I used to teach. And as far as I know, that is not something that's been affected. So I think I agree absolutely with connecting with the districts. All the districts are different. Palm Beach County, for example, is very different than a lot of the central or North Florida counties. where we're more open to these types of conversations. And I think having a good relationship with the school board and the district folks, the curriculum folks, I think that would be a good move forward. A question I had too about clean. I haven't actually seen anything advertising, maybe nationally, for having some kinds of workshops, or can there be ongoing workshops? And is this something that can be offered? And how deep does Clean want to go into that? I know I mentioned several things there, so I'll stop.
Any follow-up thoughts to what Rachel just shared?
Jump in on the last piece of it. I think that Clean and many folks in this space of helping with climate change education face this conundrum of developing good resources and then not having the ability to do the outreach and marketing necessary to really implement them. And the idea of doing a national thing, kind of like as we've been talking about, we've done these blanket presentations before, but that's not what really increases usability from what we've seen. It's really working with folks who have a specific need that we can help them to address, and getting specific on what does your district need, what does your region need, how can we give you something that you can implement? Because it's kind of the idea of a national presentation model fits a bit into that deficit idea of if only folks knew that Clean existed, they would use it. If only they had the information that this existed, it would get more uptake. And that hasn't been successful from what we've seen. It really takes a more specific, like, how can we support you in what you're doing? What are you doing? And what pieces of the puzzle can we help you fit? And the big challenge is, that's good to know. And we have a full-time staff of 3, myself and Gina and Katie. And so we're playing with our ambassador model right now to figure out how to revamp that and get a broader coalition of partners nationally that we can support in learning communities and other setups that will make that specific help to districts and regions more possible. But it is like the question, and that does hinge around back to that idea of who has the resources in this space. And most of us who are doing work in the nonprofit or academic world don't. So that's the challenge on pushing back against the big money players. But enough on that. I see a couple hands raised.
Yeah, Andrew, go ahead.
Yes, this should be taken with a grain of salt, since I'm much more familiar with undergraduate education than K through 12. But I've been thinking about how to kind of go from the abstraction of teaching climate change to the felt experience of young people. And it continues to strike me as I try to simplify things that extreme weather events is the intervening variable between climate change and immediate experience and human impacts, social impacts. And so if Clean could develop some kind of introductory literature or organized literature around how to begin a climate module, starting with the discussion, the experience of extreme weather events, whether those are intense storms, drought, heat events, and so forth, that might be a way that people who teach might find attractive. Anyway, I got to go fairly soon, but also want to take this opportunity to thank you for this discussion. Excellent conversation.
Thanks so much, Andrew. It's great to meet you and see you in that space. And just, Scott, I'm going to come to you in just a second, but centering on what Andrew just shared, increasing the umbrella. That, to me, what's exciting about the climate space is exactly what we're talking about. It's really moving into this interdisciplinary space, centering, as Patrick was sharing, centering our learners and where they are and how they're experiencing, to what you're saying, climate change in their own lives, what that means for them personally, for their families, for their communities, how it's different from somebody else experiencing the same, let's say, extreme weather or a power outage or what have you. So centering those experiences, allowing those stories to come out, and then that naturally leads to ways of sharing it. The modality used to share it could be a written piece, could be an artistic expression, could be a video, could be the science of it, could be just a lived experience. So I think there's a lot of opportunity to really do those things. And I'm going to stop there because I want to make sure Scott, and we're coming up on time. So maybe Scott and then one additional share. But great conversation. Scott, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. I know Patrick mentioned you've got limited staff there, but it strikes me that if you've got, something like a subject, interdisciplinary uses of clean resources that you offer as office hours, I don't know if it's the same thing as an ambassador, or you have a concierge, like 1 hour a week that you could offer that to the public and you get the word out and see, you could see who shows up for that sort of thing. And if it turns out to be popular, maybe you could train some other people how to do that kind of thing. Some volunteers to help with that might be a useful activity to see what kind of responses you got.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm excited about the next year. I think that my primary focus over the next year is going to be doing this outreach piece and trying a few different avenues. We have tried office hours some, but it's all an interconnected puzzle, right? Like you gotta first spark the interest in the right people to come to office hours to share with their colleagues to, get this momentum going. And I think one thing that hasn't been as consistent is a point person ready to do professional development and workshops, which is a role that I'll be taking over the next year. So I think there's potential for some progress, and we're going to try some things for sure. One thing I wanted to mention that I'll touch on a little bit next week, preview. I've been also working on the National Climate Assessment Educators Guide for the NCA 5 that came out last fall. And I think that might be a really nice set of resources to help push this work and help move us forward with teaching across the curriculum and clean. One piece to that is that in the NCA, there's a big focus on hazards, which touched on, what was mentioned. Hazards are a really handy way to sidestep political conflicts in this space, because there's nobody who will resist making a school more wildfire or flood or drought resistant or whatever. And so we focused a bit in this next set of resources on classroom level climate actions focused around hazards. So as part of this NCA 5 Educators Guide work, we'll have a guide of about 50 classroom level climate actions that are sorted by a category that they address. And I think that'll help us move forward in some different spaces. So I'm excited about that.
Great. And I know we're just about at time. Any last closing thoughts from the team? Definitely really appreciate the conversation. And yeah, likewise, I think just starting these learning communities, offering, I know this weekly call serves as a PLC. We are all from around the country doing this work, but maybe there are, through expanding the ambassador program, which I'm a part of, opening up other opportunities, other times of the day, maybe more focused efforts, very specifically around curriculum and integration, for example, K-5, even drilling even further down to this smaller slices, the K2 environment. So I think there's a lot of different opportunities, especially if we leverage more people, and definitely hearing what you're saying, Patrick, about a team of 3, but collectively we're a team of much more with the Clean and the network we have. So through the Excels program and through other ways that we're working together, I think there is an opportunity for us to share bigger and have more impact. So we'll leave it there. It's 11 o'clock here in California, and we're on the hour. But thanks so much, all of you, for your efforts, and look forward to further conversations.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks so much.